And there we go. Okay. And now I'd like to turn it over to Karen, who's going to introduce our speaker.
Well, thank you, President Mike. Aaron White, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you.
Aaron joined Youth Unlimited in 2004 after graduating from Emmanuel College in Kitchener, Ontario, with a bachelor's degree in theology and youth ministry. Aaron now oversees the leadership of Youth Unlimited, YFC, Collingwood, as the acting community director. Aaron also manages the social media for Youth Unlimited Canada. When Aaron's not spending time with young people in Collingwood, he can be found traveling the province, speaking to teenagers along with his turntables and headphones as he uses his skills as a DJ to connect with young people. Aaron and his wife, Danielle, have a 4-year-old, and they think he's pretty cool too. So welcome, Aaron. We look forward to hearing about your program.
Well, thank you for having me. It's unfortunate we had to meet like this, but that's the world we live in right now. I want to first thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, you never know who can hear and who can't. I want to thank you on the outset for your partnership. We really we look at donations and things that come in beyond just a financial aspect. It's a bridge into our community. It's a bridge to organizations that we work with, and so we don't just consider Rotary a financial donor. You guys are our partners, part of the DNA of our community. And so I want to share a little bit on kind of what we do in the community, how COVID has affected that, and what we've done in the midst of COVID, because lots of things have changed. COVID has allowed us to move away. A lot of people recognize us as the Door Youth Center, and this is what's been in the community for about 20 years. But COVID, as things change and culture changes, has allowed us to, COVID has allowed us to move away from this location-centric mindset, because we've come up with several new ways of reaching and connecting with young people, especially over the last 11 months. So Youth Unlimited Canada is beginning to move away from a solely drop-in focused and location-based organization as a whole, in order to focus on a range of community-minded initiatives that don't require the type of dedicated space that we've had in Collingwood for the last 20 years. So at the end of August 2020, we were operating a house right across from CCI. And we decided to terminate the 5-year lease that we had with the owners of the house that we had been operating them. And it was very successful, and we chose it because of the location. But COVID affected our ability to host group gatherings, as you all know. And the house as it was not able to be used as we intended it. And we just didn't know, when it was going to be used, and for the foreseeable future, it still wouldn't have been used. And so we made the really tough decision to end that. However, we were able to come up with some things in the midst of that. But as we move out of this drop-in mindset, we've been able to ease our fundraising burden of almost $20,000 a year, which just goes to rent and heat and hydro to maintain that. So that burden was eased, and now we can focus on tangible projects and needs in the community while partnering with local organizations such as Rotary and other organizations. So COVID really has it hasn't been good, but it has allowed us to seek a fresh new approach to building relationships and serving the community. And it really is our desire to be able to serve beyond ourselves and teach the young people those principles as well. And we want to really allow this philosophy to serve beyond ourselves to be passed on to the young people that we're working with. And we've incorporated that into some of our programs. So we're flipping this current come to us model of serving kind of on its head. And we're moving to an even more we're coming to you way of interacting. And before we were all about a location. We'll bring the location to you. And so we've moved away from that mindset. We really want to be a part of the social services that youth access. We want to be a part of the sports that youth play. We want to be a part of the youth culture in Collingwood. And not being restricted to a permanent location has greatly increased our flexibility to do this. So currently, in a few minutes, I'm going to be able to try and show my screen. I just have a few slides to show what we're currently doing. But since COVID started, we've started several initiatives that I just want to tell you about, that we launched in order to connect with our young people. So since March, we launched something called yuchat.ca. And this is a live chat and phone initiative where young people can talk to a Youth Unlimited staff from 12 p.m. until 12 a.m. Monday to Friday. And we spread this out between our staff in our region. And so we host time slots in Collingwood here. And it's been well worth the initiative. My wife, Danielle, who is currently looking after our 4-year-old right now, is regularly on the chat. And when we started the chat, it started to as a basically if you're bored or you need someone to connect with, but and it was being used like that. But as we were using it more and more, we started to realize that there were kids in crisis, and that's kind of what it turned into. And so the way that we marketed this chat line was, if you're bored, if you're lonely, if you're in crisis, if you need help, you can call us. And we really we kind of approached this initiative kind of like the kids help phone, but we wanted it to be very heavily relationship focused, because we knew that some of the youth that were calling in and or chatting in online were youth that we know and that we have an existing relationship with. But because we're not able to run the type of programs, we wanted them to have access to us for a 12-hour period, Monday to Friday. And so Danielle has been sharing some of the stories that she's been connecting with young people with. And, you know, some of them are serious mental health problems, and we're noticing a serious uptick in mental health issues since the lockdown started, not just since December, but since last March. We've been able to counsel youth and mentor and coach, and Danielle's even been able to talk to young people who think they're pregnant. And so that's really what it's been what's being used for. We didn't want to just label this chat line and this phone line as if you're in crisis, because we know that loneliness and mental health issues are really prevalent now too. And so if you just need someone to talk to and it's 11 o'clock at night, we're here for you. You don't have to leave your home. You can call us and we'll get you help, whatever that's needed. And some of it has been, you know, we have to call the police. Some of it's we have to set up, you know, pregnancy dates so that we can go and get like a test for a young lady. And so that's really what it's being used for. And so it's been well worth it. The other thing we started was YU Media, which is a social media resource bank that we just wanted to put out there online for our youth to just engage, because we know that with the lockdown, like school has become an issue as well too. And so we really wanted our youth to just start thinking creatively. And so we started a bit of a vlog where we take our cameras and we go and do something and we talk about life issues and just create discussion like that. And so it's based on photo, video, audio, and we have a blog now too. And so because I'm a DJ, we do a Friday night podcast where kids can tune in, and we play music and we have chat and we create community around that. So the other thing that we do regularly, which we do normally, but we've switched it to online, is just online coaching and mentoring, which is just a one-on-one video chat based initiative to just check in with our young people. We knew that when the lockdown was going to start, that young people need connections. And so we really thought it was very important to make ourselves available to just check in to see how they're doing. And so a lot of what I'm doing right now is showing up at youth houses with their Tim Hortons order, and we just chat for an hour on their porch. And you know, it's been really refreshing because some of the youth can't even leave their homes. Their parents won't even let them leave their homes. So I was actually last Monday, I was speaking with a young guy who's quite good in school and enjoys math. And I was speaking with him, and I said, so how's it going with school? And he says, I had my first test this week, and it was the first test that I failed since grade 5. And I said, well, so tell me about that. And he said, I can't pay attention. The way that the school is set up now, and it looks like it's going to change a little bit because we're going back into person on Monday. But the way the school is right now, this is online. It's 4 hours a day for one subject in a week. And so what they're doing is they're doing a month-long course, so math. They're doing a month's worth of math in 1 week. And then they're doing a test on it, and then they move on to the next thing. And so what we're finding is that teenagers are showing up for attendance and going on mute and turning their camera off and then doing something else in the background while they're being taught. And so we're going to see a really big decline in a handful of youth that have not done well with online schooling in the last year, just because it's overload basically. And so that's something that we're really concerned about. And I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen next week, but they really want to make sure that kids are learning, but it's just overload. And so we really wanted to situate ourselves so that we are almost 100% available for youth when they need to chat. And so that's a lot of what our days are now, are the Why You Chat, the media, and then showing up and sitting with youth on their porch and talking and giving them that connection, because they don't have that for the most part. What we did start in October was an in-person warming station, and we're hoping that we can start it again maybe in the next week or so, depending on what the guidelines look like. So we set up, we realized that there were a whole bunch of teenagers, about 50 of them, that were basically walking the streets of their area around CCI. And we began to wonder, well, and this was about 1:30 in the afternoon. And so we began to say to ourselves, well, why aren't you in school? And so that was the question that I had in my mind. And so we'd see this large group of kids. You'd see them on the school property, and then the police officer, who is the liaison for, her name is Teresa Van Boven. She's a great friend of ours. She would go over and kick the kids off of school property. And you'd see this mass group of kids, and they would walk down to the Circle K, which is right across from Cameron Street School. And they'd be all congregating in the parking lot. And so then the police would come and kick them off of there. And so they ended up at, there's a small church right across from CCI. And there's an overhang at this church. And so they were all hanging out under this overhang. And so I went over and I said, how come you guys are here? Why aren't you in school? And they said, well, our parents have excused us from study hall. And so the way the school is set up now is that at 1:30, school's done, unless you go to study hall to do your homework. However, if your parents have excused you from study hall, you don't have to go to school, but you cannot stay on school property. And so we thought, well, that seems kind of silly. So then we said, why? So we went to ask this group of kids. We said, so why aren't you in study hall? And they said, well, we're from Wasaga Beach and we're waiting for our bus. And then I said, well, what time does your bus leave at? And they said 3:30. And I said, so your parents have excused you from school from 1:30 until 3:30 and you have nowhere to go. And they said, exactly. And so they're not allowed to stay on school property because of COVID protocols. And so what we did was, and they kept coming over to the church. And so we went to the church and we said, could we use the church as some kind of warming station where they could, and we can't have them in large groups of people. And that was a really big problem for about a week or so. And I spent the good portion of the week in this group of 50 trying to make sure that they were kind of behaving themselves, because they were lighting fires under the church hangover, and they were throwing things and, doing graffiti and things like that. And so I went out and I just got permission to hang out in that group, and got to know about 50 kids. And we said, well, what do you guys need? And they said, well, we need something to do. We need somewhere to go. And so we went into the church and we said, could we set up something here where they could just come inside and hang out with their friends? And they said, oh, sure. And so we went down to Freshco and we said, could you give us like hot chocolate to feed, 50 kids? And they said, oh, sure. So we set up a reservation system where they could come in 10 people at a time with public health measures. They come in 10 people at a time, they sit in a circle, and they can sit for about 20 minutes, and we'll give them a bit of a hot chocolate, tea, coffee, and they can just chat. And after 20 minutes, we kind of say, okay, you guys got to go so the next group can come in. We were running that from October all the way until December, until the lockdown and holidays started. And we were seeing 50 kids a day coming to this program. And so we went back to Fresh Code and we said, well, I think we need a little bit more hot chocolate and tea and stuff. And so they said, okay, well, we'll help you. And people in the community realized that we were doing this as well. And so people were giving us gift cards and stuff. And we realized that having this in person was so needed for these young people, because they didn't have that structure and that connection with people that they had. And so we were able to really connect with this large group of youth in smaller groups and have really good, meaningful conversations with them. And it was everywhere from, I don't know, you name it. I mean, they're teenagers and we let them kind of guide the discussion. But it was a way that we could really keep a connection with them. And like I said, we're really hoping that we can continue that, because school will be in. We may be able to do some sort of curb pickup next week as it starts. Like, they probably won't be able to come in and hang out, but it's really important that we start that that connection again, because the more that we're reading is the social isolation is changing people. It's changing them permanently. And that's hugely concerning to us as youth workers, and to us as, you know, we want youth and young people to be vibrant and to be serving their community. And with the mental health challenges that this lockdown is presenting is very concerning to us. And so, as whatever we can do to have those connections restored, and whatever that looks like, is priority one on our list. And so, like I said, we're really hoping that we can do that. And so your donation from Rotary and your partnership has helped us to launch those things. We began funding some of the elements of this warming program, and funding the chat and some of the media elements. And we wouldn't have been able to do that in part from your donation. I'm going to just share my screen real quick and just show you a bit of an overview. Am I able to share my screen? Do you know?
Yep, you should be able to.
Okay, let me just see if I can do this.
Just go to your bottom of yours.
Okay. How much time do I have?
About another 7 minutes or so.
Okay. This will probably only take a few minutes, and I'll just go through it. No, just have to change the permissions. Can you guys all see that?
Yes.
Good. So this was just last night. This was about 9:30 last night, and this was just us checking in with youth. This is just kind of a precursor to just how important it is and how different youth work looks like right now. Is just inviting youth, and we were on there for about an hour and a half, just chatting and doing some silly things. So we really want to see our youth engage in healthy community. That really is our big number one purpose that we want to see. Our approach now is we've sectioned it into five different things: innovative centers, critical care, community outreach, trips, camps, and events, and leadership development. And so I'm just going to go through these. I won't, and if you have questions, you can ask. So once the lock-in ends, we're going to start a skill-based drop-in. We really want our youth to come and connect with us and learn a skill. We don't want them to just hang out. We want them to be with us for a purpose. And so before we were running some in-person things, we had guitars and art and different elements where they could pick up a skill and learn that. And so as soon as the lockdown ends, the church that we're actually in now is giving us their basement to run this. We really want to give them just a space to be creative, to learn a skill. We're doing the YU Media, like I said. Our community outreach, we're hugely involved in school under normal circumstances. I'm actually involved in the music program at CCI, where I am almost like a volunteer teacher's assistant for the music program, where I go into the classroom and help teach different elements of music. We do mentoring and coaching. We do youth advocacy. Sometimes we have to go to the court system to advocate for youth. And then we just do local mentoring and coaching with local organizations. And so we're just in the final talks to begin a mentoring relationship with some of the staff at one of the resorts here in town. And so we're just waiting for kind of the restrictions to lift to be able to do that. We also do critical care, which really supports systemic vulnerability. So things like young parents, food support, housing connections, mental health has become a big thing recently. And then we're doing our YU chat. Then we do leadership development. We do things like leadership training, youth leader development. We partner with churches and other organizations, and we want to cultivate resiliency. The last thing that we do is we do trips, events, and camps. So we do two camps in the year, one to Florida, which normally takes place in March break, which will not be happening this year. It might be happening next year. And we do a summer camp, which is up in Huntsville, which I'm not entirely sure if it's going to happen this year or not, but the town of Huntsville has actually given us property to run our camp at no cost. Because we just Huntsville just loves what we do, and we have a community director up there as well. And then we also partner with the town of Collingwood with events. And so one of the things that we were talking about just before the lockdown happened in March was to be able to get our youth involved in volunteering as the town of Collingwood runs their events. So an example of that would be there's how do I explain this? There's usually craft tents that the town of Collingwood will run. And so they're always looking for volunteers to run these crafts for children. And so they came to us and said, could you bring us young people to basically run this craft tent? And we said, absolutely. And so it's things like that that we want to get our youth engaged in our community because it's really important to us to be able to do that. That's the slideshow, just to kind of give you a bit of an overview on what we do. Let me stop my screen here. And so you can see what we've moved away. We still have location, but we're not COVID is they can't come to us, and so we're really Collingwood is our place to our stomping ground basically, and so we're really fortunate to be able to really do a wide range of things and still be able to connect with young people. And so to have the South Georgian Bay Rotary partner with us in these different initiatives means the world to us. And so I want to thank you for partnering with us, especially during COVID, because it's changed everything. As you know, fortunate, but it's a bit exciting because it's allowed us to rethink how we serve the community. And so I want to thank you for partnering with us as we do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions from anybody? If there are, please unmute yourself. I think some of us.
Hi, Aaron. Juanita Hodson. We met years ago when you were in the youth center.
Right. Yes.
You guys are working with the SAFE program that is being run at Barb Wire House, or is there any crossover? Because child that needs the help, but giving them as many resources as possible, which clearly you have many. So
absolutely. Yes, with them just before the lockdown, and of course that kind of blew it all out of the water. So we've connected with them, and we actually had youth that were occupants of the house, and so the partnership looked like we were able to just kind of make sure that the youth that we were connected with were